Okay, moving forward. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first item is to conduct a public hearing on a request for a consent agreement between David Ordway in regards to the property of Alice and Pitts Thompson Road in Arundel. I note that Brother Ordway managed to find his way here this evening. Dave?
Where do you want me?
Why don't you come up here and identify yourself so we touch on the device here and everyone.
I don't want to get in the frame.
Right there would be fine, David.
Okay. Good evening. My name is David Ordway. I'm an attorney at Smith Elliott in Saco. And at the outset, let me apologize for my misunderstanding regarding the last meeting. I didn't understand I was supposed to be present, but I am here now to answer any questions. In August, I furnished Mr. Shea with a letter outlining at least the background that leads to this request. I'm here this evening to request a review of a proposed consent agreement involving property of Alice Pitts on Thompson Road in Arundel. By way of background, in July, my office was asked to do a title search by a prospective purchaser of the Pitts property. In the course of doing the title search, we discovered that the parent parcel, which was owned by Alice Pitts and her now deceased husband for some 20 years, might have been subject to an illegal subdivision. Now, I emphasize the word might because it appears, at least on record, that there may have been, dating back to the mid-1990s, created an illegal subdivision. For those of you're probably familiar with a subdivision. It's defined as a division of a lot of parcel of land into 3 or more lots during any 5-year period. It is subject to 2 pages worth of exceptions and qualifications, but that's the basic definition of a subdivision. What we discovered in the course of our title search was that in 1994, Mr. and Mrs. Pitts had sold a house lot to Gerard Doobie. 2 years later, they sold another house lot to the Nightingales. And in October of 2001, they sold a 3rd lot to Richard Cole. At the time of each one of these conveyances, they retained a lot that was roughly 45 acres, which was retained out of the parent parcel. According to the Arundel subdivision ordinance, the dividing of the lot with the outsale to Gerard Doobie and to the Nightingales and the retention of a 3rd lot added up to 3. So of record, it appeared to us that we had an apparent subdivision violation. One of the exceptions or exemptions in the subdivision law is that if the owner of the property has resided on the retained lot for a period of more than 5 years, then you have an exemption, in which case you only have 2. But based on our inquiry, the Pitts never occupied the property as their primary residence, and therefore that exemption was not one that applied. A second exemption, and one that got our attention, was that under the state subdivision law, if you retain a lot of 40 acres or more, you also don't count that as a countable lot for subdivision purposes. To the extent that the Pitts had at all times a lot more than 40 acres that they retained, then there was a question in our mind whether that exemption applied. I therefore met with the planner and the code enforcement officer to review the situation. Tad was already aware of potential purchase because the purchaser had met with him to review plans and to discuss what needed to be done as far as permitting. The potential for a subdivision issue was not something that Tad was aware of, but I made him aware of it. We discussed what might be done to deal with the situation. The outgrowth of that discussion was that because the Arundel ordinance neither mentions or contains the 40-acre exemption, we thought that there was a legal issue that was either appropriate for some sort of judicial determination or for a consent order. Tad's sense was that this was an appropriate case for a consent agreement, and at his suggestion I prepared an agreement and furnished it to Attorney Ratchin for her review. My understanding is she reviewed it, made some proposed changes to it. Then the town manager also made probably the most important revision to it, which was adding the expense of advertising as well as Ms. Ratchin's time, which was billed to the town. And the product of those combined efforts are what I'm before you this evening. I'm here to answer any questions, and I would note that I have redone. I did find a typo in the consent agreement, and I've updated it to bring it current through September rather than August.
Any questions from board members? Go ahead, Dave.
So the parcel that is up for sale is the 43.25 acres?
That's correct. It's all that remains of the land that's back off from Thompsonville.
Dave, how do we know this 43 acres of survey work?
That's based on the town tax records, and there also is a survey. The survey has been submitted to the town plan.
So it strikes me you're just being overly cautious here.
Well, better than the other way.
I understand. I appreciate that. Because I know we have 40-acre lots in this town that have been exempt or not, you know. Just thinking of whole subdivision on a Curtis Road.
Kind of the legal nicety here is that the Arundel ordinance doesn't mention one way or the other the 40-acre exemption. All municipal subdivision ordinances are supposed to be based upon the state subdivision law. And the state subdivision law says that unless a town affirmatively includes the 40-acre exemption in its ordinance, then you would go by the state subdivision standard. So that's kind of what we're relying on.
I don't in my septic, let's see, I don't recall that coming out, but most of that stuff is.
Right.
Mr. Pitts was an old, established real estate lawyer who practiced in Wells, and I think he at least thought that the 40-acre exemption applied when he did this. I don't think he set about doing it casually.
Yes, but
Do we know if the 3 lots that were conveyed are of legal size for our ordinance today?
Yes. And of course, all three of them are now house lots. The town of Arundel issued building permits for them, and the consent agreement recites that the town was aware of these dividings when they occurred.
Which lots are they? The lots that were subdivided, were they the lots right on Thompson Road?
Two of them are.
on Thompson Road.
I believe that the Doobie parcel is still owned by Gerard Doobie. The Cole parcel, which is just off from Thompson Road,
Doesn't have any names on it, so.
is owned by the Coles.
This must
And
be-
the third one was originally conveyed to the Nightingales, and I think it's been reconveyed to someone else.
If I showed you the map, would you know which ones they were?
Sure, I've got it right.
There's no names on this, so
Yeah.
I suspect it's probably,
The first, the first parcel to be conveyed was this one, the Doobie. The second parcel to be conveyed to the Nightingales was this was 1994, this was 1996, and then the third parcel to Coles wasn't until 2011, this one, correct. And the remaining parcel is this piece.
it doesn't say it on here.
That's only one lot.
It's not
Yeah.
Lot 1B, 1E. And then the one to be sold would be
one. And 1G is the third one.
Is there a house on 1G?
Yes.
Must have it right away through 1B or 1E. So the consent agreement is just because it was basically illegally done, did not to go after them for anything, And accept it
If
as-
there was anything,
right? Right, and it's to accept it as all, everything's all good.
just we would not be able to bring any enforcement proceeding against it's whoever's buying our property. That's all it's done.
But if he buys that property and decides to do a subdivision, then he would go back, all of our subdivision rules would apply.
Correct.
But generally, if something existed, something is not listed, you have to go by statutory requirements, which would have been at the time the statutory requirements that would apply, so.
Yeah, but
State
that-
supersedes local if it's not listed.
I mean, I was taking a position for me, an exemption that said that, but it's a caution. That's, I don't see any part of foul.
The other question was, what's the 518.74? What's that fee for?
Legal fees and advertising in the paper. So it was $420
For the,
for the, and then the advertising for the journal was $92.
Anything else, member? Okay, we'll close the hearing. Move on to the regular meeting. Approval of the agenda, if there anything to add, yes, sir.
Under old business A, I'd just like to recognize the fact that today is the 56th anniversary of changing the name of North Kennebunk to Arundel. September 9th, 1957. And then to B, I will give an update on the zip code.
Make a motion to approve the agenda with those additions.
Need a motion?
Second.
Yep.
All in favor? I suggest that perhaps Mr. Ordway to head out, that we skip on down to new business and consider the consent agreement have a chance to review the agreement itself? Take it?
I have.
Any questions or, yes?
Motion to accept the consent agreement. A second?
I have one question about the consent agreement. Dave, in paragraph 1, after your recitals, you say Arundel should take no enforcement action, etc., or any alleged violation of the Arundel subdivision or zoning ordinance. I'm not sure we should have zoning ordinance there, 'cause I don't know anything about any zoning violations that may exist out there.
Right.
So it's not, I'm okay with the alleged violations of the Arundel subdivision ordinance, regulation, whatever you want to say there, or the municipal subdivision.
That's fine.
Is that okay?
No problem. And I would indicate also in that paragraph, third line, the division of the spang. I've added parcel there.
Good choice.
And then I've updated September on the very first line and September on the signature line.
Motion to consent agreement.
What's that?
Yeah.
So the motion's been now made with the amendments to eliminate zoning and to include the word parcel after spang. Otherwise, it's the only changes. Everybody in favor? All in favor? Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Want me to
Thank you.
retype this or
If you
want me
would,
to
and
line that
I'll
up?
sign the witness page, and if you retype it, send it on, get it all in order.
I'm going to leave that with the new dates and I'll just listen to the new page.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, then turning to,
You gotta redo it. Sign it.
okay, returning to the regular agenda then, public forum. I'm going to have an issue that wish to raise or bring to the attention of the board that is not already on the agenda. Melanie,
I have a question.
I have to have you say your name, so
Melanie Mitchell.
thank you.
What is the protocol for addressing some of the issues on the Eastern Trail? My family was walking it the other night, last week, and we've been noticing the water rising on the Bedford end. And I guess apparently there's a beaver out there, and there's a bridge, and it's stuck, it's basically built a dam. The woods are saturated with water. But my big issue is there's a huge sinkhole about this big on the side, and I actually have pictures on my phone. You can see the yellow piping markers out there where it indicates where the gas pipeline is, and the water is over that, well, was over that. My husband and I went out and checked today, but the water where it was dammed up with the heavy rains had gone over the trail and caused some sedimentation and erosion, and you could see where the water was like running off. We could hear a small trickle there. I spoke to Tad about it because obviously the ET. I put a call in to Unitil. I haven't heard anything back. I'm pretty upset because I do abut it, and there's gas pipeline. The soil is sinking. There's a big hole, and if you wanted to see the pictures,
Yeah.
I can show you. But my major concern is it's a gas pipeline. There's a sinkhole. Nobody's getting back to me. I've called the Recreation Department in Bedford. I've called Public Works and spoke to his last name, left a message on, his last name is Parent. Ray Parent. Public Works left a message there.
Are we in Bedford or Arundel?
It's in Bedford, but the gas pipeline runs through Arundel. And, I'm concerned because it's safety. So I don't know
I'll follow up with a call to Unitil, I'll follow up with a call to the city of Biddeford. I know Ray very well, let them know your concerns. And I will also get in touch with the Eastern Trail Management District so that they are aware of it, and I'll get an answer to you as soon as they get
The
back.
beavers, actually where the sinkhole is,
Yep.
has stuck sticks. Where the sinkhole is, it's gonna, it drastically complicate the issues on that side of the Eastern Trail, and my main concern is the gas pipeline underneath.
How far into Biddeford are
It's in between mile marker 24.25 and 24.5. And I
What does
can,
Unitil has a concern about?
you? Absolutely.
and we were down there today, and my husband just was messing, and I think there's oil or gas or something in the water, and you can, I have the pictures here. Did you want to see them?
Yep, if you want to pass them around.
Well,
You won't call anyway.
I did. I'm trying to find the sinkhole. That's part of the sinkhole where
Holy cow.
they put the sticks in. Wow. The beaver has, and it's huge. The beaver's so big, we call it buck. It's huge.
I will call Ray in Biddeford tomorrow. I will call Unitil as well.
The beavers are the ones who put those,
I got a picture of a beaver and a beaver splash. And
Yeah.
its head is like, it's buck.
wow.
And let the flums know, it's a good traffic.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll make some calls tomorrow on Wednesday.
Yeah, I can show you another. If I can find it. I'm sorry.
Just for me.
It wouldn't take much to undermine that gas line.
Yeah, so they're pretty, it's all encased anyway.
Students could make a real mess.
No, I'm sorry, I can't find it.
All right, so
All right, fine. Duly noted, and I'll follow up in the morning, Melanie, and I will let you know what Unitil and the city of Biddeford has to say about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
anything else? Public forum. Okay.
But what is the protocol?
That would go direct, that would go through the Eastern Trail Management District, and then it would go to Unitil and to the city of Biddeford, who would be ultimately responsible for it, because that section's in their town.
Okay, because they've known
So-
about the ET, according to the rec department.
Yeah.
Biddeford, they've known about it since Labor Day.
Really? Well,
Who is?
ETA, ETMD.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's quite a while, and the water it's all through the woods. The water's got to go somewhere.
Yeah. I'll go through we have the operating manual for the trail, and I'll make sure that I'm not going out of my bounds, but I'll definitely bring it to their attention again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, minutes from August 26th. One thing I would correct, Simone, under 5 is comprehensive plan review committee rather than planning. Anybody else have anything they picked up? Picked up.
Motion approved.
Second?
Motion's made, second to approve as amended, all in favor? Committee and board reports.
I apologize, these are out of order, but planning board will meet on Thursday, September 12th at 7 here in the library. Selectmen Du Bois, do you have an update?
No.
There was no.
Formal.
EDC meets tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Here. Comp Plan Review Committee meets Tuesday, September 24th at 7 p.m. here. I do need to make note that a quorum of the Board of Selectmen will meet on Wednesday, September 11th at 5:30 for a Chamber of Commerce event held at the Kennebunkport Conservation Trust, 57 Gravelly Brook Road in Kennebunkport. And I will also inform you that Arundel Heritage Days will be held Saturday, September 14th from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. at the North Chapel Common Site, corner of Limerick Road and Route 111.
Is this, the library available for the comp and review? We didn't know what it was.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Was there a meeting on the 3rd?
Yes, there was. And you were stabbed in this.
That's right.
I wasn't there, but it was.
You were conspicuous by your absence.
What's that?
You were conspicuous by your absence.
I am, missed it. I better put this on my calendar.
New business. Consideration for approval and extended sick leave policy as revised at our last meeting.
As revised, and yet I just noticed that my cut and paste has failed me once again. And you get the donation of sick leave or vacation are made from accrued vacation or sick days, but it still says holiday time. So I guess we will table this until next month when I can get it right. And just to make note that at the beginning in section A, it says to establish procedure, yada, yada, yada. Employee of the town of Arundel who exhausted sick leave, vacation, and holiday time hours, that will remain because the employee receiving the donation will need to utilize all of their time. But I apologize, I will fix that last holiday time, get that out of there, and we will hopefully approve this at the next meeting.
I do have a question.
Okay.
Under 4, it says all donations made are usually based on the benefited employee's base hourly rate of pay. No adjustment shall be made for pay differentials.
Yes.
So if the person donating the time gets a higher rate of pay than the one receiving it, then the one receiving it is still going to get their own rate of pay.
That's correct.
But what if the person donating the time is at a lower rate of pay than the person receiving it? The person receiving it's going to receive that sick time at a higher rate of pay.
They only receive the hours that,
If employee A makes $20 an hour, employee B makes $10 an hour, employee A needs the time, it will take 2 of those sick time hours to make up for 1 hour for the employee who is receiving it.
Okay. That's my question.
Any other questions? Okay, then try to wrap that up next time now. Okay, new business item C is for us to consider the potential articles to be voted on in conjunction with the state of Maine's November election. The only one that I'm aware of at this point in time might be the Arundel temporary occupancy ordinance. Got a new name now, huh?
Yes, it does. We've gone several rounds with this, Tad and Jim and I. They don't agree with the changes that I've made, but at the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen, the registered vehicle has been removed from the language. And we had a discussion about the easiest way to get around this ordinance would be to take the plate off your recreational vehicle and say it's not registered. So
I think this works pretty good.
What's that?
I like the way this is worded a lot more than the other.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we went through the other one, went through this one, and I felt that this one was the most thorough, and was the easiest to enforce. And so that would be the question. You don't have to approve the language of this right now. If this is to go to the referendum, all we need to do is order the clerk to place this on the ballot. And any changes that may come as we discuss it further can be made, and a public hearing will have to be held to go over this with the public, at least 10 days prior to the election.
So right now, we would only have state ballots, right?
That's correct.
No, I was
Oh, no,
just
this will be,
notified
oh, I'm
that
sorry.
the RSU is supposed to be putting a question on the ballot, on a separate ballot. It was just informed today by email, and then they called later. And unfortunately, the state asked us to turn in on Friday whether we need to have machines programmed or not. So they said they were going to have a paper ballot, so that means we're going to have a state ballot and a paper ballot already.
So what would it cost us for a ballot for us to put just one thing on for a ballot?
It would be cheaper to do a paper ballot if we were going to do it. So I would need to get more counters. Otherwise, you're talking about programming. The programming, I think, would not be any additional if the state is doing it, but then you have the cost of printing ballots as opposed opposed to printing them off on the photocopier.
I'm just thinking we should wait until June.
Well, didn't we discuss that, did we decide that we wanted to wait for this till June anyways?
No, I think we were waiting to see whether the bond issues were
Yeah,
going to be
whether
approved
there
by
was
the
some-
legislature,
anything
whether there
on
be
the
anything to vote
ballot.
on November period.
Yeah,
Then we were going to decide whether, we are going to have an election, whether we want to put this out.
put it on there. What would that cost be, Simone, just for ballots?
The ballots would be minimal, it would be the additional staff that you need to count them. I mean,
For the
cost
number of the voters, I would
$20.
imagine that with even having a couple of extra counters, that it's gonna take very long to count the votes.
Yeah. And then you'd be able to vote turnout.
It's the board's pleasure. Do you want to move forward with this?
Just a quick question on this, the violations and penalties, how is this enforced? Who enforces the violations?
Code enforcement officer can enforce them, as can the sheriff. And the reason for the reference to the state statute is so that the sheriff can enforce the statute a lot easier using state statute than local ordinance. So if
And what does
every
that,
day is a new occurrence and up to $1,500 a day is what we're allowed to charge, so we come to the board of selectmen and see what the penalty would be. And then they would be served notice and taken to court to prove their guilt or innocence.
If somebody removes a plate,
Yeah. That's no longer an issue. Because the initial one had the discussion of a registered camper trailer
Yeah.
recreational vehicle. No longer does it have to be registered because of that argument that if I want to park it in my yard, I just won't register it because then I'm exempt from this ordinance. So that is gone.
so what is that state title? Title 30, section
That-
4452.
That's a general enforcement provision, like for all land use ordinance or regulations, that's how that's done.
Yeah. That gives us the power to enforce.
what was the issue that the code enforcement officer and the town planner didn't like on this one?
They didn't want to have an ordinance that didn't restrict it to a registered camper RV, but we've worked that out through discovering that I just won't register it and I'll live in it. So the issue that I'm aware of in town, it's not a registered RV. So that would pretty much give anybody the liberty to say, I'm not going to register my RV or my camper, I'm just going to stick it in my yard, then I don't have to follow the rules. So that's kind of where that landed.
We're going to work with the title. Just a temporary occupancy ordinance. What?
So what's gonna be on the state ballot this year?
Just the bonds, 5 bonds.
Which don't typically allow that many residents.
Oh, I'm sorry, Melanie.
I'm confused, does it matter if it's registered or not registered?
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Not anymore.
The wording,
No, because all the definitions that we have in here define what each category of recreational vehicles, so the pop-up camper, the camper trailer, the park model, they're all covered through here, so it doesn't have to be registered. If it is registered or not, they still fall under the same definition.
I'm just confused, thank you.
Well, my personal feeling is any type of ordinance should get the majority of the town to speak on. And I'm not so sure that a November election would do that, so that's just my feeling. You know, the cost, if the cost is minimal on this, you know.
What's the RSU? You know?
Something about.
Returning the additional funding they received through general purpose aid to education. It was my understanding that that was going to be returned to the towns. Andrew didn't indicate what they were voting on today, but the RSU board was taking it up this evening. Had something to do with those funds.
Thought that may generate some.
Yeah.
else have a thought on this?
Doesn't matter to me one way or the other. But if it doesn't, if we don't put it on the ballot, I mean, whether it's on the ballot in November, whether it's on the ballot in June, I do know, I mean, more people do come out for town meeting, and more people may come out to vote in June, but if anyone's interested in it, they're going to show up to vote, and we're gonna be sending out information, letting people know it's on the ballot. We're gonna be sending out information, letting people know there's gonna be a public hearing.
I think Jan's point is the discussion at open town meeting rather than a yes, no vote.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, depending on what the issues are, you might have more people show up in November
That's exactly
than you
right.
do in June,
If history is any.
right? But at least, you know, you can discuss it and make.
We will have public hearings.
Yeah, true,
Give people an opportunity to
true.
advertise it. I think you probably will get more votes in November.
Yeah, as I think more and more.
Probably right.
Mm.
Todd, are you aware of any outstanding complaints that,
There's one. On this.
On this issue?
Yeah, there's one outstanding complaint.
I thought it hasn't been resolved. I thought
Not
it was
yet.
resolved.
No. The state has been into, the state has met with Jim to say that they can't indicate whether, there was no fecal matter that they found. They don't know if there's urine being dumped on the ground, but he said that that portion of it, there was no, state had no evidence, or they couldn't find any evidence as to any fecal matter being disposed of on the surface of the ground.
Good, Phil.
We have one complaint, and to the best of my knowledge, in the history of the town. And we're gonna add 5 pages to our ordinance for one complaint.
We only have one complaint. I've heard of one other that somebody just asked me if something was ever going to be done about it, and I mentioned that we did have an ordinance we were working on. That wasn't a case of sewage being dumped on the ground, but it was a case of having a home that is not a house. It's like a motorhome.
Oh.
And it's set up as a permanent structure, so, I mean, there are people in the neighborhood who think that it's about time that it wasn't there because it's on a very tiny lot with another house, so.
And, you know, to Phil's point, I understand there's only been one complaint, but there's nothing that we can do about it. Whether it's one complaint or 50 complaints, there's nothing that we can do about it. And this just kind of puts a line in the sand that says, you know, we have an ordinance, and it stops any future from propping up and something, you know, because from happening.
From my point of view, I mean, I appreciate, you know, overregulation. That's, everybody has a problem with that. And, you know, you bring an elephant in the room to take care of a small problem, but I just think we have a unique opportunity here. This could become a problem. It's not yet, and we've got an opportunity before it does become a problem to give our code enforcement, our law enforcement authorities the authority and ability to do something about this issue, which is a safety issue. We shouldn't have people living in these types of vehicles day in and day out. So I think I just assume put it on November and.
do you need a motion for that?
Yep.
Yeah, I make a motion, we put it on November's ballot.
Okay, I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? And all opposed? Going once.
Simone, we need to change, the way we worded the order was with the temporary occupancy ordinance as the title, and we're gonna wanna change that.
I just think, you know, you might want to say you're on the temporary, where we have camping vehicle
Camping vehicle.
occupancy ordinance. That's,
Okay.
because that's all we're talking about here. We're not-
Yeah.
Now, Simone, how can I can't change that in writing and have it,
I don't see why you couldn't insert camping and just read, they could, you know, in the definition of it. It's
Okay,
Yeah,
just the
camping,
order.
camping vehicles, that's what the, camping vehicles.
Arundel temporary camping vehicle ordinance, occupancy ordinance.
so I have the municipal order here.
So it's not that far away. Should we discuss, I mean, are we ready to discuss setting up a public hearing on this, or maybe put it on the agenda next week because we really haven't reviewed this one.
Nope, that's exactly what I was doing here, is to give you this copy, oh, sorry, Mr. Chair. And yes, we'll have it, if we do it the 23rd, we could set the public hearing, and work out any of the bugs that are still in this, at the next
The
meeting.
public hearing only needs to be done at a minimum of 10 days prior to the actual vote. So it could be done in October.
Yeah, it's just time flies pretty quick when you know.
When you have any
when
questions.
you just only have 2 meetings a month, so.
What about if I have a houseboat?
Don, just identify yourself for us, please.
John DeWitt?
Okay.
Yeah.
If I have a houseboat and I register it for the water, can I take it out of the water and put it on a lot and live in it?
I don't know whether that comes under the definition of a camping.
No, we didn't-
So I can do it.
We didn't figure that
Apparently,
out.
Recreational vehicle that is either self-propelled or towed by a consumer-owned tow vehicle. I mean, is that too broad? or-
Yeah, boat is another whole list of definitions that.
All right, was that?
Incorporated in there. We can discuss that at the next meeting,
Right.
No.
and I will do the research for that.
You got any other examples, Don?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else? Because we did get the bus converted into a camper, and
Yeah.
get that in there, but I didn't even think of boats.
I think a boat should be exempt. I think you should be allowed to do that. What's the matter with that? There's some pretty nice boats out there, better than some houses.
Well, if they want to live on them up at Danillo's Marina year round, I mean,
In the
that's
water.
different.
Out on the land, that's what boats are for, right? In, underwater. I've slept on
No, but it is a houseboat,
So
so
it's still in the water.
Yeah.
Oh, we can discuss that.
Yes, we can.
We'll be discussing these things. Okay. Okay, we need now, item D is to authorize additional expenditure of $2,801 from the Public Works Capital Equipment Account for additional costs associated with the purchase of the new body for the Public Works 1996 Ford.
I do believe if Roger was here, he would say that this is a case of common sense not existing in the world any longer. But there was a grease fitting that was associated with the new body, and it was completely inaccessible. And so in order to meet Roger's standards, they had to put a remote grease location for that fitting, and that's where the additional fee came from. If the board doesn't approve it, it will have to come out of the Public Works expense line, because it's already been installed on the truck.
$2,800 for
To put a remote,
They had to put a stainless steel plate on there to make it work, and I'm assuming that that's the pinto plate, that stainless wasn't inexpensive. It's $2,801.
we're paying $40,000 for a dump truck and they can't put on a grease fitting?
Not an accessible one, Don.
Come on.
Well, it sounds like we own it, so.
We own it, so it's either coming out.
we ought to be talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, Roger ought to be talking to them about it, for that kind of money.
Absolutely.
That is, I know stainless is not cheap, but
It's expensive.
we have remote grease fittings on equipment all the time. And it's a hose with a grease fitting over here, the grease
Exactly.
is over here.
Yeah.
Piece of cake.
you secure it,
The
the
plate
machine.
might be a little costly, but not $2,800. I'm not saying we don't pay it.
Right, no,
We
I
gotta
don't.
have it,
Yeah.
but I'm saying Roger should be talking to them.
This is already installed.
Already installed.
Why? I guess I gotta ask the question is, we went to them with a quote, they provided us that it's gonna be this much, and now they've coming back and and we install this without approval, shouldn't that not be installed at this particular point? Why did they install it? How did they, who gave them the okay to install this?
Roger. Not me.
Typically on a contract like that, it comes the way they bid it. If you ask for something different than what it comes with, that's where you have to pay.
Okay, but I mean, they could have come to us and we could have said, hey, find a cheaper alternate route, and I'm not sure how they did this, but $2,800, to me seems like in the scheme of things, it's not a whole lot of money, but a whole lot of money here and not a whole lot of money here all adds up. And that just seems like an awful lot of money to me for a fitting. I mean, I deal with machinery all day long, and I don't like it.
So what is that LSSE pump? Is that the actual grease pump itself?
Yeah.
That's what that is.
And obviously, if the fitting is not readily accessible, it's gonna get skipped,
Yeah.
and then you're gonna pay down the road. We have that happen all the time, too.
Yeah.
It's just, I understand we need it accessible. I have a hard time with the cost of that installation.
Now, we have a lot of work done by Fairfield. don't we?
Yes.
I mean, they're the only game in town for some of this stuff, pretty much.
Pretty much for some of it.
Some,
Yeah.
Why was there a pump that was put on that though? To Jason's, to follow up on what Jason just asked, is this just a fitting, or did they put some sort of grease pump on this thing that?
The way it was explained to me was that fitting was not accessible, so they had to have a remote location to be able to access that. So my only assumption can be that that is what that pump is for, so that it can grease the fitting that's not accessible. I mean, the purchase of the $2,801 is within my scope of authorization, so the reason that it's before the board is because in order for it to come out of capital reserve, you need to approve it. If not, this is something that we could have purchased through Rogers. I'm not trying to say that we do this all the time, but I'm authorized up to $5,000 to make purchases. The body was in the shop, Roger said, we need this. That's what they got, and the body is on the front.
Did you even mention what is this LSSE pump? What is that?
I don't know what LSSE
Do
stands
you know
for.
what that stands for?
Small determination of fuel. That pump most likely controls the whole body and sanding unit and everything.
Doing the same thing.
Are you Googling
We're
on
Googling
this?
it.
Is there anything there? I had a feeling that's what was
Probably
going
a brand.
Oh,
He's
okay.
got the faster processor.
Yeah.
God, I don't know, all over the place. Yeah, I was just looking at.
I don't even know which one to click on.
It's just, yeah, it does, I mean, there's all kinds of looking up at pumps. I wish that they'd have come to us first just to try to go for a cheaper alternative.
Understand?
I mean, it's nice to have, but there might have been cheaper ways to do this, and maybe he's got a good reason for it, why we have to have this pump, because I gotta think for $2,800, it's more than just a fitting.
I don't know much about the equipment, but I would hope it was.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine that Roger didn't look at every alternative to see what could be done differently.
Roger usually is pretty careful with what he spends, and he's very reluctant to come in and ask for extra money. I totally agree with the remote grease air capabilities, maybe Roger could, maybe we should approve the payment, because we gotta do it anyway. But ask Roger to try to negotiate with them a little bit, at least, before writing the check. All the money that we give them, the business,
That was my point.
they should be ready to help a little bit on one thing that Roger asked for. And I wouldn't doubt that they would.
And, you know, and Phil, you know, to your point where, you know, you get something you quoted and they come back with a price and anything added. I buy machinery worldwide and I do this stuff all the time, but, you know, after they've, you know, you work out a deal. Now, maybe Roger already did this, I don't know, we're kind of in the dark here. But, you know, sometimes, to Phil's point, we deal so much with these guys that they can, you know, work out a.
And maybe he already has.
Again, we're in the dark, we don't know what's.
Well, the choices are two. We can either approve it coming out of the capital reserve, or we can say, hey, Raj, you're gonna have to hold that out of your budget at this point in time.
Well, I make a motion, we approve it coming out of capital reserve, anything up to that amount, to see if Roger can't negotiate them down a little bit.
Second for that motion?
I second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? 4-1. Okay, on a much better note.
You sure that's not $2,500?
Even it's out?
All right, well, I kind of, we slipped through the cracks with Stryker, and their, the sales rep that I was dealing with, service wasn't, the sale wasn't exactly as clean as we thought, so I had another rep who called me, the regional sales rep called me to apologize for the lack of response. Apparently there were personnel issues that had to be dealt with, I believe maybe, anyway, that's beyond my, and I just kind of gave the gentleman I spoke to a little bit of a hard time and said, I hope the service is better than the sale. And he said, you know, what can we do? I said, well, you know, $1,000 off. And he said, I can give you $500. I said, all right, I'm happy, considering we had already signed the order for $17,689, I believe was the price. And so they did take $500 off and let us know that the service will be much better than the sale. So figured I'd pass on a piece of good news there at least.
All right.
Something.
So is that reduced off the cost of the contract?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and we're expecting delivery in mid-October.
Yes, they said all of the stretchers that are being ordered now are the Power Pro series. They said they were willing to give us a loaner manual. I said we already have a manual Stryker cot, so mid-October, he said they're ordering them like they're going out of style. So that's good for them, and hurry up and wait for us.
Okay, item F, we've already touched on this, but we're gonna group it at 6 p.m. Down at the Route 1 lot site with surveyor going to be there, or just going to have it marked out?
Surveyor will have it marked out. The land, Will Conway will be there
Okay.
to walk the property and show us where all the interesting points are.
Now, that property is right next to our Weirs, right?
You know where Obi Plamondon's business park is? It's about a half a mile south of Weirs on the same side of the road. There's a wooden fire truck that somebody built. I think it might be a daycare in there.
Yeah.
Right after that, on the left-hand side, you'll see a business park. It's a condominium complex, and Obi Plamondon is in there. And if you park in Obi's driveway, the lot's straight down that right of way. And I can send you the Google map if you like with the address so that you know exactly where it is.
And anybody know the property? I mean, is that something that we're gonna need some boots or?
Yeah, well, last time I was there, it wasn't very wet. There are wet areas, but I don't think we'll be crossing any marshes. So I think as long as you're not wearing, fancy dress shoes, you should be okay. I wouldn't say mucklucks or anything like that. It's not that wet.
However, if the weather does turn foul on that day,
I was, well, we could probably post it as weather permitting,
yes,
so that if it is pouring rain,
it'll pass.
yeah, postpone it to a different date. Didn't know how hardcore your folks were.
Is anything gonna be staked out at all as far as anything?
There'll be other flag, they're gonna go out and flag all the corners and blaze some lines so that we know what we're looking at, so when we go out there. And I'll have copies of the survey and the property as well for you.
Just the corners of the property, right?
Corners and some, some lines to be able to know how to get to those corners. Because the property's been flagged in the past, the wetlands have been delineated, and the last time we were out there, some of those were still up there. So they'll do the corners and indications as to where, directions for the property points.
Okay, so but there'll be no flagging of potential building envelope spots?
Not at this point, no. And Will can describe that, I'll ask him to come to join us at the meeting following so that we can go over what we see and he can give us some potentials for that.
Okay, moving on to approve and sign the payables warrants. Any motion in that regard?
So moved.
Vote.
Double, wow.
You have a second? Or is Dan?
I got Jason as the motion.
No, I have the motion.
Dan,
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay.
Oh, what did we say it at the same
You
time?
said-
Yeah.
And then you almost choked there.
All in favor? Okay, on old business, we have a notation that this is the 56th anniversary of the secession.
No.
No, this is the 56th anniversary of the change from North Kennebunkport, which was once the town's name, back to Arundel.
Oh, you should have brought that flyer.
I
That
thought about it
they
after,
circulated,
because
yeah.
the best one on there is
It's
that
13.
North Kennebunkport has 17 letters and Arundel.
Yeah. It was 13
It's a name
reasons why.
change.
Yes.
Is that,
Yeah, so that was I'll email that to you because the librarian at the Lyman Community Library, when he found out I worked in Lyman, told me about this flyer, the paraphernalia that they mailed out, and it's pretty comical to read, so I'll forward that to all of you so that you can enjoy it as well.
is that when we actually officially voted to change the name?
That is when the name was, yes. Yep.
Really? Because I got
September.
married in 1958, and I thought that, in September of '58, and for some reason I thought my marriage license was issued by Alice Leach in North Kennebunkport. Yeah, yeah, because I just think that, and I know in '57, our mail came up on the Thompson Road, our mail, we were in RFD, North Kennebunkport.
Yeah.
And that was in '57, and I lived there in '58 until I got married and lived at the farm. And I think my marriage license was issued in North Kennebunkport.
Well, it may have been September 9th that the town voted on it, and then they took the legislature to change it, but it says September 9th, 1957 on all the research that I
Or
have.
that may have been when we applied to the legislature to change the name. So I didn't think that that's when it would change.
Well, I didn't bring any cake or cookies.
I didn't
anyway,
either.
so, you know.
Didn't even bring candles.
Yeah. No birthday
So
candles.
we'll expect some next meeting.
It's true.
Yeah.
I'll bring you all the candles you can.
And all cake.
Okay, next item B under old business is an update on our zip code
Yes,
request.
received in the mail today, a letter from the manager delivery of the U.S. Postal Service, Lloyd Keast, manager of operations program support. I could read you the letter if you'd like, or I could just summarize it for you.
Bottom line.
No change in zip code.
Yeah.
We may appeal this decision within 45 days. I'm not sure what grounds we'll appeal it on.
Appealed.
To the Postal Service yet again. That would be sent to Washington DC, 475 L'Enfant Plaza. The reasons that they gave us: cost in excess of $4,000 to perform database updates, route assignments, and other associated tasks. In addition, Southern Maine Processing and Distributing Center cost analysis estimates an annual recurring cost of $15,000 from handling of this additional proposed zip code, which would be in the same post office and delivered by the same people. But they're saying it's going to cost us too much money.
A one-time cost of 15 grand?
No, $15,000 a year would be
Oh,
the
okay.
recurring cost.
And they, even that, the postal service budget, holy crap.
So that is the denial. If the selectmen would like to vote on an appeal, I'll be more than happy to find a way to do that, but I have
Well,
to
the
get that.
EDC doesn't know about that yet.
Not yet, I just got this letter today,
So,
we
let
may
them
discuss
know, and
this
they,
again.
they may have some, thoughts on what we want to consider zoning. They were pretty, maybe adamant about trying to get something done, so.
I'll know more, right?
So,
Can we let them know that we support them one way or the other now? Like we support the appeal or feel?
Let's see if they want to appeal, and then you can support it at that point, I think. Be
I
the
think we
best
have,
way to do it.
as Todd said, I think we want to get a handle on exactly what's the basis for the appeal, what do they look at, what's it gonna cost us to do that, do we have to hire counsel, do we, that can get expensive, we don't think going to Washington, I don't think, but we'll see what they have to say, or maybe we can pass the information along to our congressional, I know she's hurt, but,
I will make a call to Bonnie tomorrow morning.
Should have had that
Tell her
covered on
that
my
Angus, get on that.
yeah,
Yes, we'll exercise all avenues.
okay. Any other business? There isn't any, entertain.
Actually, one minor thing.
Go ahead, Jason.
Does anybody know, there's a gentleman in a small green pickup truck. I see him on the weekends. I always thought he collected bottles. I think he's picking trash up on the side of on the roads. I've seen him a lot on Limerick Road. Have you seen him?
Does it have a cap on it?
Yeah.
I have seen that. I think
Somebody
he
knows who it
is.
is or what he, it's an older gentleman and
I think it's the same guy that rides his bike up and down the Limerick Road and collects bottles, but I'm not sure. Next time I see it, I think he's collecting bottles as far as I know.
it looked like he had a bag of trash.
I saw him Saturday down near the trail.
Did you? All right.
He does Mountain Road as well.
What's that?
He does Mountain Road as well.
All right. I can find out for you.
Yeah.
I see him during the week too, because it seems to
I
be-
see him on dump day.
Yeah.
I pass him on Limerick Road.
You got bottles to?
Let's go to the fire station.
No, but I'm sure he'd like to know who the guy is if he's cleaning up.
Oh, if he's
signs
picking
and
up
roads.
trash and stuff, I'd like to
Yeah.
throw him a bone or something, like, hey, thanks, you know, I mean, send him a Christmas card, something,
Give a couple bottles.
Next time I see him, I'll
buy him
stop.
some bags. Or,
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?